standards and so educated here for you. So you that as I mentioned, we're going to talk about civilian response to active shooter events. This comes out of Texas State University. It's a ALERRT program. Stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Response Training. It's kind of become an industry standard for active shooter training in law enforcement. What ALERRT realized is you guys are the kids in the fire, and we have to train civilians. We show up. Well, you really important before we show up. So that's what we're going to get into. This is obviously a pretty decent sized group. So depending on where you're from or what event you may be connected to one of these events, involved in one of these events. If you have some type of emotional response while you're listening to this, they'll figure stuff out with it. We can sit here and go through the response to it not here let's deal with it. So you're going to hear some things in the presentation that are hard to hear. You're going to have to think about some things that are hard to think about. None of this is theatrics, there's no stereotypes. It's going to serve a purpose and then relate back to all of it, why and how people are going through these events and what they're experiencing. So as we get started, the first thing we're going to hear, and it's like Mario, right? It usually works with that. Give it some home. Do I need to get closer? You're okay, Mario? Anybody for Mario? For Mario, you like jump higher? So you get to see you. Okay. So first, we're going to listen to the librarian from Columbine County Nelson. Obviously, in 1999, you're gonna hear that she wasn't really prepared for this event. I don't know if any of us were in 99. Myself, I was a senior in high school. This was a countless event around the country for active shooter response to train how we as law enforcement respond and how we train ourselves at monsters responding to active shooter events. All those training some of the FBI checks. It really was the first common event that picked off the least in the media. So I was going to try to put yourself in kind of a situation. This is what you're going through. You're trying to pick up on a few things that the dispatch is telling her to do. We're going to talk about it. Well, that's pretty good. To put yourself in kind of a position of listen to what you're going through and helping out in hindsight, it's really hard to hear. I'll give you this presentation more than 100% at this point, and it never gets easier than probably stress response, you're feeling something, just feeling that in. You guys think she was ready for that one? No. There's a couple of things that dispatch sort to do that I'm hoping you picked up on. What's wrong? Well, that's her. For those parents and lock the door, right? Dispatch is locked. What's Patty's response to that? She said, I'm not going here. How come? Right outside the door, I got 3 kids at home. Right? Anybody got kids here? Everyone want to go home? Yeah, I kind of did too, right? So I think we can empathize that she was scared to death to go near the door. What's the other thing? So we got locked the door. Let's get in. Stay down. That's an interesting one. We're going to talk about that. She did say that. Stay clean. So stay clean. Okay. So lock the door, stay clean, right? She does talk about getting on the floor. We're going to talk about why that is. But Patty was trained exactly to do that, right? So I don't care what part of the country you're from. Here in earthquake country, it's called like shake it out of my roll or stop it off in the bowl or something. Right? Is there an emergency management people? What's the time? Shake it out of my roll is something. It's not. Stop dropping. Like you guys might not. Whatever the term is, we teach you to get under something to be safe. If you're in a hurricane country, if you're in a tornado country, it's very similar. So other than there's a few young people in here, but for those that are my age and or older, outside of the fire drill, did you any drills in school in 1999 or front? Other than fire, where you stop, drop, and roll, and line up with the ducks and protect the you know what? Okay, that's interesting. Where are you from? Okay. Interesting. But to that point, that's what they were trained to do. That's what the kids are doing. That's what dispatch is doing. Is they're saying, get on the floor. She said, I know the kids are going to take it, right? We're going to talk about that. So luckily, Patty survives this incident. Sorry, that case around, so it made me stand behind this thing really quiet and learning. So it might be distracting, but it is what it is. Survived. She's interviewed a few years later, and her one regret was not locked in the room. She made the comment that if she knew 10 of the innocent kids killed that day would be in her library, she had done everything she could to keep them out there. So although hard to listen to them here, we're going to talk about this a little bit further in the presentation as well. So the one response was what it is. So one thing I'm bringing out to you guys is even though we're going to talk about finance today, the media would like to believe that it's just fun, and it is, right? It's happening more and more. But we need to remember the finance as a species that the society is not. Anybody old enough to recognize Austin, Texas in '66? Well then. Yeah, we've gone next to the top of the bell tower, start sniping people, students, staff, whatever, right? Law enforcement in the '60s did not have the weapons we have today. We were essentially paramilitary for a reason, because we're going up against paramilitary style assault and weapons, right? And the '60s wasn't a thing that the chief called a war gun. It was called a revolver, actually, but he called it a war gun. And that's what they had in the '60s. They had to go confiscate hunting rifles to deal with this individual in the bell tower in the '60s. And in Oklahoma, anybody recognize that building in the '80s? No, it's a United States Post Office. So right along the term going postal came from this event. It was the first real prominent place of workplace violence where somebody went to work, started killing coworkers. So that's where that comes from. So keep in mind, violence isn't new. What's new is this, right? We all have one. these events kick off and you have the information in the palm. Some of these crazy people are live streaming as it's happening, right? It's in your hand right now. The 60s and or the 80s, or even 99's Columbine, you may or may not have read it in the newspaper or see it. You may have heard about it in the newspaper. So before we get into active shooter and the toolbox that we're going to give you in response, it's really important that you guys understand how as human beings we function. We're highly stressed for a disaster response. We all go through the same thing. I don't care if you're a Navy SEAL. I don't care if you're a police officer. If you're somebody that's never even thought about this before, we all go through these three things, right? Now, depending on your environment, your experiences, your education and training level, it's sometimes you move through. Like the Navy SEAL gets shot and they just react to it. It's a fraction of a second where they start shooting them, right? Same thing with police. Hopefully, we respond pretty quickly to whatever's happening now. You never thought about it. You may get stuck in denial before you can move forward. But if you get stuck there, that's bad, right? You don't want to be stuck there. So there's that. It's in the first stage. We're gonna try and get past that, right? Guys in the room with a blank stare on your face, rolling denial. We've all been there. I've been divorced twice. I'm pretty sure, right? I got at least 2 people that will attest to it. So we're just gonna move past them. But you're not going to move past them. So once we get past the mile, we get to deliberation. The reason there's 3 arrows on this is I'm not going to stand up here and give you guys a one-size-fits-all answer. Because it depends on where you're at, what's the environment, how many people are there. We're going to give you some tools, and hopefully you can integrate those tools into your life and where if and or when it happens. When you get to finally having deliberation, you start processing information. There's 2 parts of the brain. There's the human brain, which you guys were using throughout the day, you're learning, right, and taking notes or answering emails or whatever. As soon as your life is in danger, your lizard brain takes over. And it functions differently than your human brain. This is literally the survival, right? You got fight, flight, or what? Freeze. Those are the 3 responses when it's suddenly life in danger. They either react, they fight, or they run, they flight, right? Fight or flight, or they freeze. When your body's so overwhelmed with stress, it doesn't know what to adjust. Anybody familiar with the color code on your stress response? Any former DMS or current volunteer heroes that were they call firefighters? No, that's good. It's going to make fun of them later. But anybody married one? I'll be nice. We love them. We do, actually. I picked the wrong word. No, right, I did. But they need heroes too, right? So they're ready. So, and that's 60 beats per minute. That's a, for the most part, pretty average resting heart rate. You go around the day, you're not thinking about life, there's not too much stress going on. You're functioning, you're going through it. When you start to get some type of stress response, your heart rate goes up. And I can see it on some of your faces listening to it. I can see the stress response starting. You start to breathe heavier, you start to feel the blood kind of oil, or if you like, I don't know, you with some kids about brushing their teeth, or it's funny, I'm going to go, right? Hopefully, you don't need to read and start getting trouble with us to stay in yellow. But you can still function in yellow, you can still process information and do things. When you start getting to red, 120 beats per minute, half in a fraction of a second, you start to lose fine motor skill, right? You're not going to be able to touch your fingertips, you're not going to dial small numbers on a phone, you're not going to get in the door, for sure. So remember, you start to lose fine motor skill, you revert to the instinctual side of fight, right? Punch, kick, on, defend, survive. When you get to gray, you lose even more function. You get a ton of it. You're heavily focused on whatever the threat is, or the event is happening. You lose your hearing, you get auditory exclusion. I will tell you, in my experience in 19 years, I fortunately and unfortunately been involved in critical incidents, and I go to great. I can focus on what's going on, what's going on for the family to read. I don't hear anything. And even if I find it, it's great. Under stress, I don't hear it. Now, fortunately, once the danger is gone, which I've started, the words in it. It's weird, but it's good because as a police officer, if I can't see or hear anything while I'm responding under stress, is that a good thing? And I'm somebody that's a tactical officer of a dozen years. right? So I want you to remember that we're not robots, right? If I train quite a bit, I mean, I got probably 6,000 hours of training under my belt. Go to grade, where do you think somebody with no training does? Think about it. So if you have the opportunity to read the statement up there from the student out of Marshall County, she went to Black. Luckily she survived, that's where we got a statement from her. But what did she say? What did she do? What happened? Everything was black for a good minute. Like I could not see anything. I just froze. I did not know what to do. Is that a good place to be? Not. So hopefully what we get past today is give you some tools, get you thinking about this is a possibility so you don't go to black. So that you still get to deliberation, start processing information, and actually make a decision to hopefully save your lives and our others. But going to black is where we want to avoid being. A good example of it, Station nightclub fire in Rhode Island, the band Great White. Great White. I want to like listen, like I've done this 100+ times. I literally not listened to this song. I should have. What is it? Can you sing it a little bit? Is there like one you want to tell me to listen to? Is there like a thing? We ordinance for okay. Anyway, besides the point, I'll listen to something. Search Great White. Well, the point of this video is going to be is I want you to pay attention to what. So Great White's playing pyrotechnics on stage when the stage behind them, the stage catches on fire. I want you to just pay attention to the crowd and how they tend to move through the denial, deliberation, and start actually doing something.
February 20th, 2003, 100 people lost their lives, 230 were injured, one of the deadliest nightclub fires in U.S. history. The fire was caused by pyrotechnics that were set off as a way of Great White intended place being saw. The illegal indoor use of outside fireworks led to the igniting of highly flammable sound-proofing foam on the walls of the stage. Within 30 seconds as the fire started, the entire stage was engulfed. Most of the 462 occupants ran for a narrow hallway to the front entrance. The entryway soon became packed with terrified people all trying to leave at once. Some were trampled to death as the frightened crowd tried to escape the smoke and flames were closing in behind them. In the chaos, the front door became a tangled mess of bodies as dozens of people piled on top of each other in a frenzied attempt to flee. Within 5.5 minutes, the entire club was engulfed in flames and hundreds of lives were lost in the ruin.
So 5.5 minutes, hundreds of lives. Pretty fast, relatively, right? Do you think it felt like it was faster than 5 minutes? It's going to feel like an eternity, I promise you. Time tends to slow down and that type of stress. It feels like it takes a long time. What's the crowd doing initially? Initially, they're not. That's why we have video. They think it's part of the show. Well, where do they stop? Stuck in denial, right? So once they get past denial and they start delivering people's crowd, so we need to move. This is what happens. Here's what the investigation shows. The majority of people died in and were trying to get to the foyer. Why do you think that might be? Somebody said it's the way they came in. So they came in that way, right? So what did they just subconsciously train themselves to do? They came in that way, that's the way out. Okay. Now, these people right here on the other side of the wall, the investigation showed they're trying to get through the wall. What does this say down here? What are these? Windows, right? It says they were broken for the sake of one initially. They did end up being broken, but game tables, more specifically, those were pool tables. What do pool tables have? Sticks. What else? Really hard ones, right? Like, do they break glass? Yeah, you don't have to be like a baseball player. You throw a pool cue at the windows and break it. So rather than trying to get through the wall, what would have been the smarter option? Go out the windows, right? And so, I mean, your husband's probably said, yeah, oxygen. I guess, break windows. The building's looking at it. Yeah. But think outside the box. You don't want to get stuck And that's the way I came in, that's the way I came out. So I don't think people in this room, when you entered this room this morning, thought about other options to get out of here, everybody they told you to come with. So they're in the room, that's good, actually, it's more than wrong. So I'm gonna encourage you, when you're going about your daily life, and you're in the life, which stress is, think about that. When you go into a movie theater, how many people just walk up the stairs and don't pay attention to where they're actually, like, you see the green sign below, it's annoying, right? But if you really think about it, that's the way out, sometimes it's behind the screen, depending on where it's at. There's also this little window above you that you can project out of, and you can get up like, upstairs. And we think about that as an option to get out of the movie theater, right? You're going down to an option. So get creative, survey your surroundings. Just kind of orient yourself to what's happening, so in the event that something happens, you have a plan before you're under stress, okay? So we talked about staying calm in the past, easier said than done. Combat breathing is a good way to do it. Anybody know combat breathing? Do we have that from the military in here? So I don't know if they actually teach it in the military, I think they do, and that's what it's called combat, but. Ultimately, it's pretty easy, you can all do it. You take a deep breath in through your nose. So anybody with anxiety knows you can breathe in a bag or a straw. You might be focusing on getting air in your lung versus whatever you're panicking about. So breathe in through your nose, 3 to 4 seconds. Then look at the script, whatever special. That's period. Or we're breathing exercise. In through your nose, 2 to 4 seconds, fill your lungs completely. You're gonna hold it for 2 to 4 seconds. Then you're gonna exhale out 2 to 4 seconds. That's combat breathing. If you do that 4 to 5 times under stress, force yourself to hold that air in your lungs, oxygen, blood, get your brain moving, get you out of gray, get you out of red, get you down to where you can start processing information and function. Now, a good place to practice that is exercising. If you want to do on a treadmill on testing, it works. Sometimes you do a little rare thing to take your break and I'm going to read and do it again. Watch over the regular time. Shifting your emotion easier said than done. You're going there for the you want to do that at cost, whether that's shock, whether it's breaking in whatever. It's safer and then deal with your emotion. But deal with it down, keep it silent. In order to get there, we need scripting practice. We're going to talk about the scripts. Practice is incumbent on you. Your employer maybe might run drills. And it depends on your situation, but you for sure can do it. So a good example of scripting practicing, let me back to now a little more. So Rick Scola worked for Morgan Stanley and Team Hunter during 9/11. They also worked for them during '93 when for the young people who don't know, they want to private one was the first one. And that was successful, obviously. Bomb the apartment garage of the World Trade Center. But what we learned from that. Sorry, I keep on one screen. Easier listening. What we learned from that is Rick realized the elevator stopped working. You know, power in the building was sketchy at best. So he was the safety guy, like the emergency planner guy from Morgan Stanley. So every time he ran a drill, fire drill, whatever, evacuation drill, he had to use the stairs. They're on like the 40 some odd floor. So nothing more than you guys, but 8 years of going and doing 40 flights of stairs during the fire drill. I'm like, yeah, dude, I got some stuff, dude. I mean, I've not been exercising or whatever, like not today. Right? Dude, let's be honest, he's serious, but seriously unheard of what to do. Yeah, that's what I expected. Fire alarm goes off, and dude, really? Shut down my computer, I ran a bag. I go look at the little chart that tells me what corner of the field I need to do, right? Not to take it serious. Should we? If you're in a station club and the fire starts, do you have an idea what fire looks like? Yeah. Try and start taking it serious. I know it's so just take it serious for 30 seconds. Right? So we're gonna train them to go down the stairs. What do you think happens in 9/11? Well, they do exactly what they were trained to do. Under stress, they all pack up, they all go down the stairs. Everyone from Morgan Stanley got in. Nobody got it that way, other than Rick. And Rick was last one back in to help other people evacuate. So if you're ever in there, there's a memorial important. it's a good example of how to script and practice it, because as we saw with Patty in the comment, that you're going to do exactly what you've been trying to do under stress. If you never train yourself, if you never thought about this event happening, you're going to freeze. And you're going to get hurt again. So try and script, try and practice. So you're asking what other what does it do? They don't care about you. Right? They fire this is OSHA comes in and does whatever OSHA is. Same thing, mobile, you would I'm just wondering like what you guys do. So what does it stand for? Health administration, is that an acronym? Oh, okay, well, this is that OSHA, okay? People with 3 and or 4 letter acronyms that work for the federal government. This is it. Sorry, OSHA. Yeah, I think, I mean, and the airplanes as well, like, there's a struggle with the airplanes. We have to come on later. That's the weirdest thing. I've had a lot of weird things happen in my career, like lots of my career, and like that's one of them. Like, weird, I think like NCSB for something. So once you get through now, once you have practice, once you are practicing your then you get to deliberation. Now we're going to take a specific moment and take it what's going to say to it. So you're not going to listen to Captain Sullenberg, the Captain from Marathon Hudson. I want you to pay attention to a couple of things. 1, how calm he is. And then 2, see if you can pick up on how quickly he considers the Hudson and the Constitution.
Okay, you need to return a low right turn left heading up 50 there. Stopping the clock, there's got emergency returning. 15.9, the first flight you lost all engine, you lost the truck the engine to the turning radius. 15.9 wound engine, he lost truck and both engines, he said. It's 15.9. Can you get it, Pete? Do you want to start away in 1 and 1 break? I did 15.9, 50 left traffic, runway 31. Okay, what do you need to land? I did 15.9, runway 4 is available. If you want me left traffic, runway 4. Okay, you're going to try to keep it going at 4. You want to try to go to Cuba? And we're going to park on right there now. And it's 15.9, there, you might want to 1 and 2. Okay, we're going to drive the 2 I'm sorry, taking second. Yeah, I did 15.9, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up in 2, talking about 7 miles. You got 0.718 girl up in 310.
But how common is that? Okay, who was a cucumber? I'm flying an airplane to New York City and I was Los Angeles. I guess it's I'm not piloting pilots. Got all nice. Yeah, pilots in here only underplanes. Good day. How quickly does he consider the Hudson as an option? Or pretty quick, like for 10, 15 seconds, he said we may be in the Hudson, right? And sure enough, there he is. Now, where is air traffic control stuff in the process? So when he says we're going to be in the Hudson, where's air traffic control stuff? They're in denial, right? I think he says for the most part, like, you didn't say that. And then he keeps working, right? Usually, I don't know if I heard it, but usually when we listen to the comment that people chuckle when the dispatcher calls it kind of a cert. Anybody laugh, that's fine. Everybody does for the most part. There's a reason. Dispatch doesn't go with active shooter or trained for active shooter in 1999. You probably talked to 50 servers before Patty calls, and so she's stuck in the loop, right? So Captain Sullenberg, or Sully, luckily for these people, was a former military pilot, very experienced, like 15, 20 years in the military, and then had been a commercial pilot for about the same amount of time. So when I talked to him, he talks about training for 1 minute a day, the importance of training for 1 minute a day. Now, in your world, it could be a safety brief, like you guys do OSHA safety briefs. It's good, it's fun. Yeah, do that, but that's your training. It gets your people thinking about what's important now, right? So when it comes to these events, like I mentioned earlier, I want to challenge you for a minute a day. Every time you walk in an environment, change your environment, just think about what if. So when we're training, what we call baby comics, or new comics, or even SWAT operators, we play the what if game constantly. And the reason we're doing the blood pressure is we're really paranoid. Like we run around in the yellow all the time because we might get a call like a man or on the way there, like a man. These things are good. Maybe just move an animal. There's going to be anything when you get there, when we get on the car and put it in there and shut up, they do something. Right? And that's what we do. It's like, it's weird. I don't do that. But just train for 1 minute a day, whether that be mental preparation, whether it be an actual flight simulator or work-related training, or whether you're doing some type of VR as a big training, virtual reality. Put yourself in an environment. Your mind doesn't know the difference between playing the what if game and training yourself mentally as it does actually being in the environment. If you play the what if game and you process information and something happens, it's not new to your mind. That's how you avoid going to black. That's how you avoid freezing. Your mind at least has thought about it as a possibility. That makes sense? So now that we've talked about how you're going to respond under stress, let's talk about active shooter events. So the government defines them as any attempt to kill a mass number of people, specifically 4 or more non-domestic, non-gang related. And it's because we track those statistics separately, right? So if you get the Enoch thing, gun violence for sure, domestic for sure, not active shooting. You get gang violence and drive-by shooting, and you don't might have shot a bunch of innocent people on the street, gang related. They don't count. Now the news will have you believe that all of them count, right? As far as your response or our response to the video, it's the same, right? Whether a gang member shooting another gang member and you're in a crossfire, or whether somebody comes in here just trying to kill innocent people because they're snapped, does it matter? Does your response matter? Change? No, it doesn't, right? The tools are going to do the same. There isn't really a profile to these people. They do typically have an avenger mindset. They feel like they've been wrong. They're trying to avenge that wrong. There's usually some broadcasts. There is some weird exceptions, like the Vegas guy doesn't really broadcast or leave a manifesto or do anything. We have learned some of the warning signs we're talking about. He exhibited a lot of them as we look at his pattern. So your case studies, here's your warning signs: antisocial behavior and or isolation, especially if they were social before and they kind of regressed. Vindictiveness, again, they're trying to right someone wrong. Victim mentality, nothing's their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Somebody else is always to blame, right? They won't look at them here. Persistently angry, and not just, and not like the incredible old angry, but like they're just angry about small stuff, like they're just all on it, right? Stalking, harassing, or threatening behavior. This is huge. Usually, for the most part, ladies in the room. If you have somebody who's a former member that is stalking you, harassing you, threatening you, please call the cops. You think they're a nice guy or something going on in their life, they're not, they're escalating. Do not deal with that. Put a stop to it sooner than later. You have a couple of tragic examples actually in the last few years. History or exposure to violence. They grew up in a violent past, they commit violence, animals, all those weird extensions. Strange behavior. So this one's hard to peg, but what I call this one is if you're interacting with somebody like normal interaction, that's fairly normal functioning person, but then we interact with certain people, so they hit on the back of your neck, it just stands out, right? You were from Central, you said, right? Does anybody remember the weapons of mass destruction thing we had in Central a couple years ago on July 24th? So I don't do that, right? Yeah, it's a different story. But this was one of those guys that I was talking to where like it's like a moment's moment. Right? It was just strange behavior, right? So this is Substance abuse can be a problem. Mental illness, is that forward facing? Can you look at somebody, you're like, that person's down here? Sometimes, right? You see it on the street corner, sometimes, and in town, but for the most part, you don't know what people are dealing with in town. This is a huge one in recent years, suicidality. If you got people threatening suicide, talking about suicide, pay attention to that, get them help. Suicide and homicide is a fine line. If you're willing to kill yourself, typically they're willing to commit violence, someone else as well. So just keep it in mind. Now, I know you can see on some of your faces, you're really seeing their being violent. So I'm kind of introverted. I'm gonna yell at my spouse this morning for being ready to come home. If you don't think that these are character traits, we all have them one way or another, you're in denial. So let's move past that. What I want to point out is if you start seeing 4, 5, 6 of these in one individual, especially if your behaviors change. Okay. What report to us? Anything that's going to escalate to actual and or threat of violence, so these actually can hurt you. If they're threatening to hurt you, you think they're legitimately have the means to carry out, right? And then behavior changes are things that are concerning. So I'm running investigations and we'd be following up or whatever, something, but we got to change this. Without that, we talk to somebody in the neighborhood and they're like, hey, you know what, I saw that really wandering around, but we don't want to hear you guys. So then things are probably okay, well, I appreciate that, but we don't have to give permission to leave. We don't have to like drink up our buddy, we did a bunch area. Like, you guys should go up. Like, we just fine. It's fine, right? That's all I wanted to do. It's true, that's. It is true. They need permission. I can go to the grocery store and we're going out on the beer. We go to the store and go out, we're going to do it. Anyway, the point of it is, see something, say something. Who's heard that? So I'm going to give you an example. Maybe I have time for it. A few years ago, I was working. I was coming back from lunch, and the back of our office is like this weird. There's two. You get to the road, you get to the one behind our office that a lot of people end up turning into, and we're usually looking for all the restaurants that are on the basic road. Get like, hey, you know how to get the video? Get a word. You can't just go around the building and sit there under the top. Well, this lady stops me, and it was not after a real question. She wanted to talk about a guy she knew that used to coach her son in baseball. She was concerned about the changing behavior, strange behavior. And she said, it's just kind of odd. This isn't normally who he is. He's usually pretty clean cut. He's in sports, pretty stable most of the time, but he started in the last few months really changing and appeared with social media. And so as I started looking into the social media stuff, he starts to change. He grows out a beard, right? No problem, like makeup for men, right? Ladies, it is. If we don't get enough without them. But for him, it was a change in behavior. And then he starts to post some weird stuff. Well, the post that she stopped me about was like 20 minutes before she stopped me. He makes a post and takes a selfie of himself. And he's wearing all camo. He's got these clear shooting glasses on. And his comment is the storm's coming. With like the boom, boom emojis. It's weird, right? Based on the stuff he's been posting prior. So I get information, I get this information, I go down to my office. At the time I was running investigations, I go do some super secret government stuff. And find out, luckily, he doesn't live here locally. What I could figure out is he lives somewhere in Atlanta or surrounding area of mine. So I followed him out and I said, hey, here's what's going on, here's what I got. Go forth and do good, right? So then I go home. I'll think about it. So the next morning I get in and I got a voicemail from the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI field office that my was talking about his view. So I call the FBI back and they give more information, they get this lady's information. And I ask some follow-up questions, but unless it involves you, the FBI doesn't like to share information on that. It's like, yeah, we can't talk about it right now, thanks. So that was it. And I didn't know the end of the story for a long time. I've been doing this probably about since 2016. So like 3 years ago, I'm in a meeting with FBI for a person that is here, who didn't brief, just through this transporting guns and snoring, who knows what, and works out of the gym in my city, and they're watching us, so they want to brief us because they're gonna take him down at some point, and we need our help with something. So somehow this story comes out, I think I was making fun of him, and that's weird, right? The guy and firefighters. It's fine. But I bring up this story about human information, and they had a new specialist in charge of the meeting who was business under some day. And he goes, what is it? So I tell one story, and he goes, I believe that story. So I'll give this presentation, and I tell the story, but I never really had it. So well, keep in mind. He said, yeah, he goes, so we've been watching that guy for a few months, and we get your guys' call. And so we go up and track him down, and he's on his way to DC with a couple of guns. Apparently, he was where the Grand Central Station was taking on some vendetta that he had against them. So the lady in Southwood, Utah, through an acquaintance on social media, sees something, say something, stops a possible attack. You just never know, right? So again, if you got something going on like that's weird, call us. We will come in. We may even wake up the fire ants and come out to the So I'll kind of talk through this as a place, but post Columbine in '99, the FBI started realizing this is something we need to track. This is a separate type of violence that's happening. We need to track what's happening and whether they're coming and try and get some type of profile, right? So pay attention really to one, how widespread it is. Two, you'll see the colors start changing because even though we call it a shooter, these people are trying to hurt or kill you in a variety of ways. Knives, we got cars, right? Bombs. If you're like a Russian spy that's trying to poison you. So just beware, careful what you're drinking. Utah, everybody recognize that event? Probably Square X. So there's going to be another one that shows up. Want to see if anybody recognizes that. But the whole point of this slide is it's not slowing down. It's happening coast to coast, right, north to south. And anybody think so? This will run through 21 because it takes the FBI about a year to vet out what qualifies and what doesn't. But anybody think that slowed down in 22 last year? No, this keeps happening, right? You can see a few hotbeds that are outliers of the actual population in the country, Colorado or something. There's a weird hotbed for that. There's a pretty obvious vacancy also. So I don't know about you guys, but northern Montana is beautiful. Like the place National Park or the Whitefish Houseville area. It's beautiful. I don't know why. Or maybe it's just these places where it's so cold that people don't want to commit violence. They're just too worried about staying with them. But you're not. It's interesting. So I'm sure it'll happen and it continues over the years. But as of now, I'm kind of Wyoming look pretty small. So anybody recognize the red dot in Utah? Yeah. You have spoken. You're a student? Yeah. So were you present at it? What? On the outside, but still traumatic in the class, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a high school student goes into the locker room. So 2 events here locally. I will tell you behind the scenes that you guys don't hear about, we stop a lot of other events before they happen. Location of attacks, business, who works for a business, who has an office, okay. Most common, I know the school get the most notoriety with the media, business is the number 1 location. Outdoors, this is like open air, setting, right? The schools, other, that's gonna be like government, military installations, you know, these places we thought were hard targets, no longer are, right? The connection with your attacker, it used to be 50-50 when I started this 7 years ago. It's moving more towards they have a connection versus not have a connection on whatever their vendors or vendetta that they're doing. These slides we can talk about forever. This just proves a point that it can happen anywhere, right? Solid in Utah Mall. I did not do it. I thought I hit the black button. I did not do it. It was really fair. Military installations, movie theater. elementary school, special events, church, conference, work, back to school, right? This goes over and over and over again. So the number of deaths are really dictated by two things. One, how quickly do the men and women of law enforcement show up? And then two, what is your target availability? Do we have a full room like this? Or is it empty? And how quickly can we get it empty if it is full when it starts, right? So some of these debriefs I've been able to go through, probably the most tragic one, honestly, is probably the Colts nightclub. It's just horrific. Don't ever watch any of the videos. But this gentleman, not a gentleman, sorry, that's a wrong word. Yeah, this guy reloads 4 different times. He's not a tactician, like he's not, like, if he was a cop, like, you cannot reload the gun. It takes a sweet time, right? But people are playing dead, they're hiding, they're hoping, and he literally reloads 4 different times to make sure everybody is shot in the entire club. So pay attention to that, how fast can you get away from it, and how quickly can you get others out. Average response around the country for law enforcement is 3 minutes. That sounds like that's pretty fast. But if you're in the middle of it, 5 minutes of the nightclub fire, is that going to feel like it's fast? Usually the event's over before we get there. A lot of times it at least stops when we arrive, and they stop killing innocent people and trying and deal with us. So your civilian response to that, this is the last thing I want to see. We do not want this, what I call hiding and hoping, but cover versus concealment, right? So who understands what cover is over concealment? Anybody? What is it? Military gang.
Cover is actually hiding behind something and barricading yourself, so that way it would hopefully stop a bullet. Concealment is kind of hiding yourself so that you're not.
Yeah, exactly. So for those kind of hearing, concealment is this, right? You hide yourself, you're hidden. Cover is hopefully something to stop bullets. I can tell you in this building, there's probably not much that stops bullets. Maybe the brick facade or the center block wall will stop a few of them. Your steel pillars will stop them. Like your vehicle, right? Movies think like your vehicle doors stop these bullets. That is false. You're not hiding behind your vehicle door. Engine block, axles, things like that, right? But you're not getting behind the door. They go right through my car, I promise you. Actually, we took out a Garda Armored World truck thing we used to have back in the day that I would swap bill, which tells you like we did some stupid stuff, right? Like we would stack up in this thing, thinking we're behind armor. And eventually we got real armor from the military. And so I bet my boss that our rifle rounds would go through the guard of the truck. I was like, no, it'll stop this one. We went through both sides of the truck, like butter from about 25 yards. So let's keep that in mind. So we're gonna reiterate on denial. Do not deny that what you're hearing is actually happening. That what you're hearing might be gunshots, right? If you have somebody close a loud door or slap their mouth, like loud mic, right? Like, that can be a once thing, but if you start hearing it in succession, you know, pop, 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 and panic and people running, like, what are they all, do people bring black hats to work and throw almost panic if you're to work? They don't in my hand, right? So the odds are pretty low. So if you're seeing this response, you're hearing something, just go, right? Guys, don't make fun of us. For whatever reason, we tend to like, here's something happening, we're seeing panic, and everyone's going like, what is going on? Probably like, right to the danger. Why does it bleed? And they're like scared of a spider or a mouse or something similar. This thing, I'll do it. Get to deliberation, start making decisions that are going to come to you. Here is your script, and then you've been eagerly awaiting it. Avoid the situation if you can. You're going to be in the middle of it. The safest thing is always to avoid it. But this is not a step plan, right? We don't have to scaffold this. You can do any of these at any time, depending on what's happening around you. The next safest option, if you can't avoid it, is deny access. You mentioned earlier, right? Make sure they can't get to you. Barricade the room. Get safe. Now, we'll go through the flow chart later, but once you're barricaded, try and still get out. If you're in a room that has another way out of it, still get out. Get away from the situation. It's always the same. Okay? If all else fails, defend yourself. Don't just stand there and beg and plead and hope nothing happens, defend yourself. If you have no other options, defend yourself. Here's the trick, the more the merrier. If somebody engages one of these people, the more people will marry, right? Like I might be able to take this, make probably not here, but it's okay. It's like, I don't know, older person's going there. I might be able to take some of the one-on-ones. But if 4, 5, 6 of you come after me, I'm having a hard time doing that, right? What my ability is. The more the merrier. The reason I do not use run high five, let's run high five. Okay, so Texas state allows us to use one or the other. Run high five, avoid high defend, both are supported by the FBI. We fund ALERRT. The reason I don't like it is we talked quite a bit about we respond exactly how we've been trained to respond, right? Now we could argue run and avoid or maybe synonymous. I think avoid has a little bit more thoughtfulness to it. You got to think through that versus just aimlessly running. I really hate the term hide. The guy in the cubicle is hiding. Okay. Now I can sit here and tell you that hide means to deny access to barricaded room to make sure nobody can get to you. But as soon as somebody starts shooting at you, how long have you known the definition of hide? When do we start playing hide and seek with our kids? Essentially, peekaboo is a hide and seek, right? You hide yourself, like I can't see you, so you can't see me, and you can't hurt me if I can't see you. Like it's like ostrich head in the sand. I don't like the term hide. I really hate it actually. So I use avoid hide defend. I also don't like the term fight. I don't want you taking the fight out into the problem. Like if something kicks off upstairs and something's happening, I want you all to leave. Or go to my assistant. I don't want anybody going out there other than men and women in blue or silver tan or whatever they're wearing in different parts of the country to go engage in the fight, right? So concealed weapon people, I'm sure there's a variety, you know, have to raise your hand. By all means, second amendment, do your thing, whatever you want to do. I can tell you, even off duty, if I'm carrying a gun, especially if I have my kid with me, the last thing I'm doing in plain clothes is going on a hunting mission. Because guess what happens when my partners, my brothers and sister in blue show up in 3 minutes, and I'm standing in a room with a gun? What do you think's gonna happen? They're gonna shoot me. And I'd like to tell you that we train our people to say drop the weapon first. It's really more simultaneously. We're like, drop it. That's what it does. And you're under stress and you have tunnel vision, you got auditory exclusion in your head, you may think you're saying drop the weapon before you pull on the trigger. It's all happening simultaneously within fractions of a second. So by all means, if you're a concealed weapon person, use it to defend yourself or others. If you turn the corner and somebody got a gun and you got to like, okay, correct, like fine, do that. The Indianapolis thing is rare with the kids in the food court. Guys are shooting people, you got them just be standing there, puts them down. It's great. That's a perfect example. The other examples, though, are Vegas. It's not even an active shooter, but this analyst going to go in and assassinate 2 criminals eating lunch at CC Pizza. They walk across the street one, as they walk in one, the guys in front of the shot one, and Joe's citizen is standing in and sees him walk through, thinking active shooter, and that's going to come. The guy along with the shot, pulls the concealed weapon, starts following the guy, not knowing there's number 2 guy. So as cops, we train whether it's 1 or 2, or 2 to 2, until we know the left, right? We just are paranoid. That's what we think about. So he follows this guy. The girl walks by him. Boom! Right in the head. Drops him. He's the only innocent person killed in Walmart because he tried to engage in the fight. He needed to defend yourself. That's my soapbox for consideration. That's just me. Breaks my lesson. I'm not recommending. So in order to avoid, we have to be situationally aware. Right? So what I want you to pay attention to here, you might have seen this has been around since about 2010, but this is a school board in I think Panama, Florida. Pay attention to what the crowd's doing, to what school board members are doing, and let's talk about their situational awareness afterwards.
This should be the first step in this whole process.
John is going to speak. So this goes on for a little while. He eventually fires him around to the school board member, doesn't hit anybody. He's in a gunfight with a security guard. He left his gun in his car on this guy. And then pulled his gun right out to John. It's okay, John. But John had to go back out with his gun. His wife, when he's interviewed, says he was suicidal, not homicidal. And I would agree with that based on what we see in this video, right? If he was homicidal, I have that in it. That's pretty bad, right? What do the people do in the crowd? What are they doing? Do you see any belongings out there? And is that important? We use the acronym WIN when I'm training cops, and for what's important. Is that important? The person in the code is important. I don't care if it's not outside. No, it's not, right? This lady, what was she doing? Hiding open,
Yes.
right? She's doing exactly what she's been trained to do. And maybe she eventually actually gets invited to leave, realize, oh, I'm gonna get out of here. The lady that comes back in, and she's gone, and she's over here somewhere, and she literally comes back and goes, stick up and leave. Yeah, this can I go, right? And she's asking for permission. Okay. So in police work, we call this a food. But when somebody walks in your meeting and sprays beef or banana on the wall, it's food and money. Something's off, and after you're taking the leave, you don't have to ask permission, you go. I don't care if you're boss on or not, just leave, right? If that wasn't, that's for sure your invitation to leave. You do not need to ask permission. You do not need your coat, you do not need your bag. Now, the brave lady with the purse. Very brave. She's trying to do something, right? Now, I don't know, anybody from like Ogden area? So I grew up in inner city Ogden, we call that a rock and a sock, right? It's not very effective without the rock floor, right? Like, in order for the rock and the sock to be effective, you gotta have a rock and a sock. So if you're gonna hit them with the purse, put a rock in there, or an anvil, or like something big, right? Anyway, were they situationally aware of what was going on, or were they in denial? Like the white hair guys are watching the show. He's like, guys, popcorn out. Oh, what are you guys saying? Right? Just move, make decisions, get past it. Know your exits. The reason 911 is last is because I don't want you calling 911 while you're in the middle of the event. How many questions did dispatch ask them when we pick this presentation on? A lot of questions. Get safe first, then call 911, right? The reason I point out these people is you can see them kind of hunkered down as dark up here, and they're right here. What is that?
Ladder?
Those that work in an industrial building, where does that usually go? The roof. Is that safer than wherever the danger is coming from over here? Probably, right? Right behind them, what's that? That's a push bar on the door. That looks like a warehouse back to me, right? Where's that going? Yeah, so what are they doing? Praying, hoping, right? They're not thinking, they're not processing information, they're not deliberating, they're stuck in denial. Consider secondary exits, we talked about that. Windows are obviously exits, right? If you need to know how to break these tempered glass windows, get a window punch or a hard object and hit it. It'll shoot it out like sugar dust. That's how it's made to come out, right? If you try and hit it in the center with a chair or a bat or whatever, you're gonna be like a little kid that runs into the slide. You're gonna bounce off. That's what they're designed to do, is keep you in. Right, Osha? Deny access. Who's grown up in the lockdown, lockout drills in school? Who's not through that? Okay, got all the younger people for sure. So this is what the schools do. It's called a lockout. We'll lock the door, turn out the lights, get outside, make it appear like nobody's there. Based on what I told you earlier, what should you do after that? Still look for another way out, right? If you don't have another way out, barricade it. Make it really hard for people to get in there. What these people we have found is they don't spend a lot of time trying to get to you if they're defeated. They hit a barricade, they tend to move on. Get creative on outward swinging doors, like the door closers. If you put a bell or something around those and cinch those tight, it'll be away from those from the outside. So just keep that in mind if you walk on your door. This person's got a bell pulling on out the swinging door on the handle. Get creative. If all this still defend yourself. Hands hurt us, right? I can't do all this stuff and hurt any of you without control my hands. But you don't have to be a mixed martial artist. You're not going to be Bruce Lee. Control the hands. If they got a long rifle, even better. Control the barrel. Right? They can't hurt you if they can't use their hands. But what I mentioned earlier, more than your hand. You got to have the right mindset. So Lieutenant Murphy, first officer on the seat, Temple shooting out of Wisconsin. Shot 9 times. First one's gun luck. Hits him right in the neck. Dropped him. Gunman comes up, shoots him 8 more times. If you're hurt and you know you're hurt, you can survive. Right? Especially this day and age. Credit to the men and women in fire service. They now are donning ballistic helmets and ballistic vests and coming with us to these events. They're in the second wave where that was never the thing before, right? It's not something I signed up for, just like I didn't sign up for what they're doing. So we'll go through Virginia Tech real fast. I know we're short on time. I'm going to listen to Christina Anderson. She's a survivor of Virginia Tech. We'll talk about her response quickly, but you should know why she does what she does at this point. Apologize, she's sorry, but she shot 3 times the survivor teams over.
So this is pretty important. This day, I am sitting in exactly the same seat I always did, in the back right-hand corner on the right side of the class. What we don't know is that this time someone's downstairs and he's chaining all 3 doors shut. There's supposed to be desks there. We heard the first gunshot outside the hallway. My teacher, she opened the door. She immediately slammed it and she said, call 911. And the second that door closed, he walks in. He walks in shooting. There's absolutely no time. He goes to the other side of the classroom by the window. He's holding 2 guns. He doesn't say anything. He just starts going down rows of people. It's very quick. It's very loud. It's very scary. We have these very shitty desks. I get on the floor. I put my knees under the chair, my stomach on the seat, hands over head, eyes closed. As the shots keep going, and it's, like I said, very loud. I can tell it's getting closer and closer. And I'm telling myself, brace yourself, your turn's gonna come. Now, I didn't know what that meant, so I didn't know I'm getting shot. But I knew that something really serious was going on. And I knew for whatever reason that I should just stay dead. She's me, the first time in the back. And you'd be surprised, getting shot doesn't hurt that much because shock overtakes you. But it starts to like burn and really kind of seep in, and that's when it gets really uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. He leaves the first time, he goes across the hall, and while he's gone, cell phones are ringing. People are coughing, and the smell of gunpowder kind of like completely filled the room. Like this really sticky, pungent, warm smell, and it just makes you very, very thirsty. He comes back. Now, this time, the shooting is more intermittent. It's slower because he's looking to see who's alive. I remember telling myself to stop breathing because I can feel my stomach hitting that chair. And I'm saying, stop, like, he can see that you're alive. The third and final time, he killed himself in front of our classroom. When the police broke in, the first thing the guy said was, we have a lot of blacks in here. I didn't know what that meant, but when police sweep a crime scene, they have 30 seconds. If you're red, you're critically injured. If you're yellow, you'll live. Black means you're dead. In 9 minutes, he killed 11 of my classmates and my teacher. 32 people lost their lives that day.
So what's Christina's initial reaction? What did you do? She gets under her very blankety desk, right? No, because she's been trained to do what? Just that, right? Yeah. So we're going to go through the Virginia Tech thing real fast. Happens in Norris Hall, the 2nd floor. Keep in mind, this guy chained the doors shut at the main entrance level. The first room he goes in is 206. He killed shoots almost everybody in the room and kills most of the people he shoots. But small room, right? Probably 3 times this stage as well, right? Then goes across to 211, that's what Christina is. Eventually, he comes back 3 times, like she mentioned, so he shoots everybody in the room. Still pretty high account of how many people he's killing. 207, similar thing. Not sure what the difference was there, other than maybe he's under a little bit of stress now. 204 is something unique happened. So in 204, we have a professor who all things survived the Holocaust and is teaching at Virginia Tech on this day. Here's all this going on, gets up, barricades the door, but does it with his body. So gunman tries the door, realizes something's in front of it, shoots through the door. Here's the professor drop, slides in, ends up shooting whoever else in the classroom. But what happened is, while he was barricading the door, a lot of his students went out the window, the second story window, gave his life to save life. 205, nobody shot him, he's killed, not because he didn't try, but he did. So what the students in 205 did is what they realized is they had the barricaded door with no locks. But the lectern in Norris Hall was anchored to the floor, not this one that moved around, right? It was anchored to the floor. So they lay on the floor flat. They put one student shoulders against the lectern, another student shoulders on feet, and they daisy chain to where they pin this door with 3 or 4 bodies, however many it takes to get there. Meanwhile, all the other students are out of the way, they're trying to get out the windows, they're evacuating. He tries the door, same thing, realizes it's barricaded, shoots through the door, all the rounds go over the top, out the windows, realizes he's defeated. He goes back to 211, where he sees the law enforcement now there, kills himself. But the people in 205 got really, really creative on how to protect them, save their lives, right? Oh, I remember you're not helpless. So what this shows is how the attacks tend to stop. The reason I got the circle is civilian stop attacker, 15% of the time. Pre-police arrival. Now, I will tell you, when I give this presentation to school, that number is like 40%. Why do you think that is? What's the difference between school and this?
They're trained.
Kids, right? The teachers, at least in my thought, tend to think those are just like their kids. They have a mindset to protect them and they'll put themselves in harm's way to do so. Versus the business world, like, hey, good luck, I'll see you later. Maybe, hopefully we'll see more. Now, when I first started getting this 7 years ago, that number was like 9, so it is going up. So here's your flow chart, primary exits, take it. You can't take it, deny access, but look for another way out. If there's another way out, take it. If all else fails, defenders, right? We'll talk through this too, because I know we're put on time. So when we show up, follow our commands, please. Empty hands, please. I mentioned I have a ton of vision, I have auditory exclusion. You think this is an expressive response for many women in office responses. Please don't have this in your hand. Under stress, coming to an active shooter minute, and somebody pulls this out on me, what do you think it looks like? Looks like you got right? Don't shiny black ones at us, please. Especially under stress. Because we tend to react first, you know, we're looking at the ice cream. I don't know if that's a gun you point down here or something. Okay. Try not to move, stay calm, just listen to what we tell you to do. I know you're under stress too. Here's what we're training the cops to do, stop killing first. They're gonna bypass injury, they're gonna go right to where it's happening and put a stop to the violence, hopefully as soon as possible. Are we perfect? No. Did we fail in Uvalde? Yes. Right, and they're gonna be accountable for that. But I will tell you, the majority of the country that is not the case. The men and women I've worked with and trained with are moving towards the violence. Again, credit to men and women in fire service. They're now coming in with us, throwing ballistic helmets and death to stop the dying and triage as we go through. We've learned through 20+ years of warfare that if we get a tourniquet on you, we can stop the bleed. I saw with whoever these are over here with all the yellow shiny stuff, and they got a tourniquet trauma kit on their table over there. Learn how to stop the bleed, right? Eventually we'll evacuate the area. That's going to take a long time. Just be aware of that. Any of these dudes wearing a uniform? They're putting a tourniquet on a double amputee at the Boston Marathon bombing. You know, the guy with tattoos is probably their military or EMS guy off duty, but nonetheless, they're getting creative, right? So if your company doesn't do stop and bleed, seek it out, watch YouTube, take CPR class, whatever. Learn how to apply a chest seal, pressure, bandage, tourniquet. It's really what you need with puncture wounds. Expect mental health issues. So businesses, if we got managers in the room, expect that there's going to be trauma. It is. Even though you were outside, it was a traumatic event for you at Mountain View High School. There was, right? Was there any resources afterwards? Any school counselors, all kinds of things, right? Have a plan, don't just send them to EAP. No, EAP's low bid, they do a lot of, trust me, I think a lot of their. We work with them. I have one from up there, it's nice. So, I'm not afraid to go back to that. Have a critical incident stress management plan for your employees and or yourself. Guys, none of us are too much of those areas. Regular therapy, 19-year cop, 12-year SWAT unit. All these ribbons on their name tag, you can go first. We'll end with Don't Name Them campaign, Texas State and ALERRT doesn't want us talking about these people's names, not giving them any more money, they get famous enough in the news, so we don't give them the time of day, right? For all I care, they're gonna come in Boston, I don't really care, but I don't care. I'd rather focus on their news. That's all I have, I know we're right out of deadline, we started a little later. Time for questions, John?